Hey guys, back with another video. I wanted to run you through one of the other decks that I've been playing a lot, and this is my Lysaga deck. Um, it's one of those like random cards, I guess, for me that popped up, and when it was spoiled, I guess I wasn't super interested in it, and then I happened to see a video about someone playing it. Once I realized the effects of the card, it kind of changed it for me, and I really wanted to try and build it out. So the commander is Lysaga, Night Witch. It's colorless black green legendary creature, human warlock. It's a 3/3 that has an interesting tap ability. You sack up to 3 permanents, and if there were 3 or more card types among the sacrificed permanent, each opponent loses 3 life, you gain 3 life, and you draw 3 cards. So the thing that's really interesting about this deck is really the 3 permanents types. So there's a surprisingly large amount of cards that can kind of get around the card type restrictions and stuff like that. It's basically a graveyard shenanigans deck where you're going to keep doing Saga's ability as many times as you can, drain everybody out. And the fact that you're drawing 3 cards every time you do this means you're always going to have cards in hand. So the goal for me was filling in the spots for all of the permanent types that I could fit so that I'm more likely to be able to sacrifice 3 permanents, hopefully by only sacrificing 2 actual permanents that have those card types, and drawing into a lot of 0 drops and little helpful cards that can change the flow of the game around. So, like normal, we'll run through the creatures. I'm running 27 of them. We'll start off with Apprentice Necromancer, colorless black zombie wizard 1/1. You could pay a black, tap it, sacrifice him, and return a creature from your graveyard to the battlefield. It gains haste. At the beginning of the next end step, you sacrifice it. So this is just a decent recursion piece. Bloom Tender, colorless green elf druid 1/1. You tap it and add a color amongst permanents. For each color amongst permanents you control. So oftentimes this is going to tap for 1 green and 1 black, which is pretty good. Body Launderer, 2 colorless, 2 black, Ogre, Rogue, 3/3. It's got Death Touch. Whenever another non-token creature you control dies, Body Launderer gets to connive, which is you draw a card, discard a card, and then I believe as long as it's if it's a permanent or non-land or something like that, you get to put a +1 counter on it. Not really relevant. The bottom part, though, is because whenever Body Launderer dies, you return another target non-rogue creature card with equal or lesser power from your graveyard to your hand. So this is going to help recur just about any of the creatures in this deck because most of them are 3 or less. And you're also, the conniving does matter. I mean, being able to draw pitch really helps out. You can get deeper in the deck. Copper Mirror, it's a 2-drop mirror that taps for green. Eternal Witness, colorless green, green, human shaman 2/1. When it ETBs, you could return another card from your graveyard to your hand. We play a lot of very good and helpful cards, and we do have 1 combo or 2 combos in the deck, something like that. So being able to get stuff back is very helpful. Fang of Shigeki is 1 green enchantment creature, snake rogue 1/1 with death touch. He's in here because he's a decent blocker and because it is an enchantment creature, which is really nice. Finhorn Elves, it's a 1-drop that can tap for a green. Gloom Shrieker, pretty good card in this deck. It's 1 colorless, 1 black, 1 green. Cat Beast 2/1. It's an enchantment creature with menace. That when it ETBs, you get to return a permanent card from your graveyard to your hand. But when this creature dies, you exile it instead of putting it in the graveyard. So it's an enchantment creature that does the same thing as Eternal Witness for us. So it's a pretty good card in this deck. Junk Diver, 3 colorless artifact creature. It's a bird, 1/1 flyer that when it dies, you return an artifact card from your graveyard to your hand. Like I said, we run quite a few 0 drops and lower dropped artifacts that are nice to get back. Lindenmere is 2 colorless, mirror 1/1. You can tap, add a black. Land of War Elves, taps for a green. Massacre Worm, 3 colorless, black, black, black worm. It's a 6/5 that when it ETBs gives all creatures your opponents control a -2, -2 until the end of your turn. And whenever a creature an opponent controls dies, that player loses 2 life. So this is a really good ETB to wipe a lot of weenies off the table. I've won quite a few games by just simply playing Massacre Worm and watching someone's entire board kill them. and that bottom ability is stagnant, it stays there. So it's kind of a little bit of control-y, not control, but it's a little bit of drain. So it's going to make it so people are going to have to think about what they're actually going to play if they're a sacrifice deck, or they're going to have to use the removal and Massacre Worm, which is fine with us. We don't really care. Mind Slicer. This is a new card I'm trying out in the deck. It's 2 colorless black horror 4/3 that when it dies, each player discards their hand. So it's kind of an interesting card to put in the deck. The reason I put it in there is because we're able to kill it with our commander, and we're always able to make sure that we can still draw 3 cards with the ability. So we can kind of make this all happen where we can force everybody to discard their hand, and then we're the only ones that actually have anything meaningful in our hands. Or I guess we're the only ones with a hand at all. I really like it because it forces people to use what they have also. So it's an interesting card in the deck. So far, I've only gotten it out twice, I believe. And it was pretty helpful because one of the people was playing Niv Mizzet, so I was able to see if they had a counter spell to get rid of it, and if they didn't have a counter spell to get rid of Mind Slicer, I'm able to get rid of their hand, which is pretty helpful for me. We have Mirror Retriever, 2 colorless, 1/1 mirror that when it dies, return an artifact card from your graveyard to your hand. Ornithopter, it's a 0-drop artifact creature, 0/2 flying. Ornithopter Paradise, it's a 2-drop artifact creature Thopter, 0/2 with flying, that taps for 1 mana of any color. Phyrexian Walker is a 0-drop 0/3. Excuse me. Oh man. Whew. Quarian Ranger, 1 green, Elf Ranger 1/1. You could return a forest to your hand and untap target creature. You can activate only once each turn. So bounce a forest back to our hand to untap Bubble Lysaga to reuse her ability. Sanctum Weaver, 1 colorless, 1 green, enchantment creature, which is important. And it's a 0/2 that taps for 1 mana of any color. You get X of that much, where X number of enchantments you control. Oftentimes it's going to be 1 to 3 mana it's going to tap for, but it's also an artifact creature, so I mean, even just playing it, it's going to tap for 1 mana no matter what, and we could sack it to Bubble Lysaga to get an enchantment creature in our ability. We have Squib Ranger. It is a 1 and a green fairy 1/1 with flash, flying, protection from blue, and it also does the return a forest to your hand, untap a creature, play it only once each turn. We have the Gitrog monster in here. Gitrog is 3 colorless, 1 black, 1 green, frog horror 6/6. It has Death Touch, and it has, at the beginning of your upkeep, sacrifice the Gitrog monster unless you sacrifice a land. It also has, you may play an additional land on each of your turns. And it also has, whenever 1 or more land cards are put into your graveyard from anywhere, draw a card. So this just existing is very good. It's a 6/6 Death Touch that we can use for blocking, which is very good. It forces us to sack a land, draw a card, which is fine with us because we also will get the draw from it. And it allows you to play an additional land, which with Bubble Lysaga, you are drawing a ton of cards. It is very easy that you're going to have more than 1 land in your hand. So this is a really good card in the deck. Tireless Provisioner, 2 colorless, 1 green, Elf Scout with Landfall. So whenever a land enters, you can create a food token or a treasure token. 99% of the time in this deck, you're going to create the treasure token because it's an artifact. It really doesn't matter for Bubble Lysaga's ability which one you would create, but the treasure is obviously going to matter more. We're not doing anything with life gain or food tokens in general in this deck. Virus Beetle is 1 colorless, 1 black, artifact creature, insect, 1/1. That when it ETBs, each opponent discards a card. So just a nice little discard out of someone's hand, and also it's an artifact creature. Walking Atlas, also an artifact creature. I know it doesn't say it on it, but this is, I'm pretty sure it's been errated or whatever. Anyway, or maybe I just have the wrong art up here. It is a 2-drop 1/1 that you can tap to put a land card from your hand onto the battlefield. Like I said, with Bubble Lysaga, you often have a lot of lands in your hand. So playing little things like this in Gitrog allow you to get more lands out and onto the battlefield. Witherbloom Apprentice, 1 black, 1 green, human druid, 2/2 with Magecraft. So whenever you cast or copy an instant or sorcery, each opponent loses 1 life, you gain 1 life. This combos with another card I'll show you later. I'm sure you've seen it. It's called Chain of Smog. But basically, you can copy it infinite number of times. And with Witherbloom Apprentice out, you drain everybody an infinite number of times. So this is one of the big combos I put in the deck. Like I said, Baba Lysaga is kind of a grindy battle type deck where you're constantly battling yourself on what you're sacrificing, what you're bringing back, and what is happening. So having a combo in there is nice to be able to eventually end the game, unless you're doing it already with Baba Lysaga, draining everybody out. Workshop Assistant, 3 colorless artifact creature. When it dies, return an artifact card from your graveyard to your hand. Most of these abilities we're going to be returning, Ornithopter, Phyrexian Walker back. But like I said, you'll see there's some other artifacts that matter. And then our last creature is World Shaper. It's 3 colorless, 1 green, Merfolk Shaman 3/3. When it attacks, you put the top 3 cards of your library into your graveyard, and when it dies, you get to put all land cards from your graveyard onto the battlefield tapped. So this is a really good one, even if you're not able to attack with it. Just playing this and then passing, and then before your turn starts, sacrificing it to return all the lands that you've already been sacrificing with Baba Lysaga's ability back to the battlefield tapped. This is one of the, in my opinion, one of the better cards in the entire deck, because you're going to be sacrificing a lot of lands. So that's it for the creatures. There are some other creatures if you wanted to add in. I know there's more 0-drop artifact creatures that would be able to help out. And like I said, I'm trying out a few different cards. So there are some different cards that could probably run in here creature-wise. Sorry about that. But it's a general kind of recursion type effect where we're basically trying to bring stuff back multiple times so that we can keep replaying the good creatures that we need to keep using Baba Lysaga's ability. But we'll move on from the creatures and go to the sorceries. So there's nothing too crazy here. There's only 1 or 2 cards that are really worth going through and mentioning why they're in here. Chain of Smog is the one that I was referring to comboing with Witherbloom. So you can copy it again. But if you have no cards in your hand, it doesn't matter. You're still able to copy it and keep copying it infinitely. So that's the big thing. It is respondable. People can wait until you have no cards in hand. So it is kind of an all-in strategy. But the thing I like about Chain of Smog in this deck is even when we go all in, if someone goes to respond to Chain of Smog, we do have a chance to respond by sacrificing something with Baba Lysaga's ability to put cards back into our hand to then maybe respond to it. So the thing I'm not a big fan about this normally is it leaves you dead in the water. You're all in Godo style is what I call it. But it's a good card in this deck. Calling Ritual, 2 colorless, 1 black, 1 green. You destroy each non-land permanent with mana value 2 or less, and then add black or green for each permanent destroyed this way. So decent board wipe. In general, you're going to get rid of a lot of those lower things. If you're playing against people that are running a lot of tokens, this is going to blow up all of their tokens. The thing you need to watch out for is it's going to blow up your own things, and Witherbloom Apprentice is one of the big ones you wouldn't want destroyed. But getting all the mana back is really nice, especially if you already have a ton of cards in hand. You get to then unload a bunch of the crap that you have sitting around that you don't want, and you also get to blow up their stuff. Life, Death. The reason this is in here is the green ability. It's 1 green sorcery. All lands you control become 1/1 creatures until the end of turn. They're still lands. This is going to allow you to sacrifice a land with Baba Lysaga's ability, and it'll count as a creature land. So all you would have to do is get one of the other permanent types in there. So this is just a really versatile card for that. And then the other side is Death, 1 colorless, 1 black, sorcery. Return target creature card from your graveyard to the battlefield. You lose life equal to its mana value. So it's a nice reanimate ability. Really, both of those things are decent enough to make it a place in the deck, but it's a pretty good card. We have Living Death, 3 colorless, 2 black. Each player exiles all creatures from their graveyard, then sacrifices all creatures they control, then puts all those cards that were exiled onto the battlefield. Basically, we're already sacrificing a ton of our crap anyway, So we're going to fill up our graveyard. We could play Living Death to kind of pseudo board wipe and get rid of everything else that everyone else already has. They all get sacrificed, which some of those abilities have death triggers, which is nice. And then all those other cards are going to come back, which is also really nice. So really good card in the deck. Reanimate. It's the same thing as the death side of the other card. It's 1 black, put a creature card from a graveyard onto the battlefield under your control. You lose life equal to its converted mana cost. Just a good thing to return someone else's creatures that are pretty annoying that we need on our side, like a Grand Abolisher or something that's going to allow us to then combo off without people doing anything, or just to get something else we would need, like a Dockside or one of our creatures in our deck. Scheming Symmetry, 1 black. You choose a player. You choose 2 players, technically. You don't have to choose yourself, but each of them searches their library for a card, puts that card on top of their library after they shuffle. So, this card in general is a pretty good tutor. It's nice because you get to kind of politic with someone else and give them something out of it, which can be nice in many different situations. But the big thing about this is with Baba Lysaga, we get to put that card on top, and then we can use Baba Lysaga's ability and immediately draw that card. So this is really nice for getting a removal piece if you need it. You'll be able to put that card on top and then just put it straight into your hand and draw 2 other things. So it's usually a pretty good card, but in this deck it's a little bit better because we get that card immediately, like a demonic tutor kind of thing. Splendid Reclamation, 3 colorless, 1 green. You return all land cards from your graveyard to the battlefield tapped. Same thing as World Shaper. You know, we're putting a lot of lands in the graveyard. I'd like to get them all back if we can. Summer Bloom, 1 colorless, 1 green. You may play up to 3 additional lands this turn. Like I was saying earlier, you have so many lands in your hand sometimes. It's nice to be able to just offload a few of them, and then that way you won't feel as bad about having to keep sacking your lands to Baba Lysaga's ability. Unearth, 1 black, return target creature card with converted mana cost 3 or less from the graveyard to the battlefield. Just nice recursion piece. And most of our things are 3 or less, so this gets us pretty much anything back. Most importantly, it gets back Witherbloom Apprentice if somebody were to stop our chain. We would be able to use like an Eternal Witness, something like that, to get back the Chain of Smog, something like an Unearth or Reanimate to get back the Witherbloom. So we have multiple options throughout that chain to be able to return those cards to our hand. That's it for the sorcery. There are some other things you could run in here. There's some decent removal pieces in black-green that are sorceries. There's, I believe, one other effect that's like Splendid Reclamation that gives you lands back. But I try not to run too many sorceries. 9 is still even a little bit higher than I wanted to do, because with Baba Lysaga's ability, we could put those cards straight into our hand. It's better to have instants. Speaking of instants, we'll run over our package right here. We're running 13 instants. They're all pretty straightforward, so I'll try to breeze through them pretty quickly. Abrupt Decay, 1 black, 1 green. It's an instant, can't be countered. Destroy target non-land permanent for mana cost 3 or less. Beast Within, 2 colorless, 1 green instant. Destroy target permanent. Its controller gets a 3/3 beast. Deadly Rollick, 3 colorless, 1 black instant. If you control a commander, you may cast it without paying its cost. Exile target creature. One of the best removal pieces in the format in general, but to be able to do it for free is even better. Crimson Grip, 2 colorless, 1 green, split second, destroy target artifact or enchantment. There's a lot of cards that destroy target artifact or enchantment that you could put in this place. I'm just a really big fan of split second, because I've had many situations where it's like I definitely would have lost because they definitely have ways to do stuff about it, but the split second kind of saved me. So Crows and Grip's one of those cards I really like it to go in almost any green deck. If you're ever in a situation where you're playing against a bunch of people with counter spells and reactive stuff, Crows and Grip is definitely the card that you need. Nature's Claim, 1 green, destroy target artifact or enchantment. Its controller gains 4 life. Noxious Revival, it could be 1 green, or you can pay 2 life because it's got the Phyrexian symbol. Put target card from a graveyard on top of its owner's library. So the thing about this card is it's a good recursion piece for us to be able to put what we want on top, but we also have Baba Lysaga's ability, so we are able to put whatever card we want at instant speed on top of our library and then make sure that card gets into our hand. and it is a card onto the top of its owner's library. So if somebody's doing something like a World Gorger Dragon type combo or something else graveyard related, like you're able to respond in between there and put that card back on top, breaking that chain. So it's a really good card. Rushed Rebirth, 1 black, 1 green. Whenever or you choose a creature, whenever that creature dies this turn, you search your library for a creature card with lesser or equal or no, it has to be lesser. Okay, it has to be lesser mana value, and you get to put that card onto the battlefield tapped and then shuffle. The really good thing about Rushed Rebirth is it is just choosing a creature, and then when that card of creature dies, you get to search your library. So if you're playing against people who play decent-sized creatures, you're able to use this on their creature so that when it dies, you get to search for something, let's just say 5 or less, which is every creature in our deck. So this card is one of those ones that I always get like a weird look from people why I'm playing it, but I just really think a versatile tutor of a creature is a good thing, and we play quite a few creatures that matter. So being able to get something out like a World Shaper, for instance, because somebody else killed a creature is very good. Tragic Slip. This is my favorite mono black card. I put it in every single mono black deck that I have. The one that's actually in Baba Lysaga is signed by the artist. So this is like, I guess you could say like more my pet deck at this point. So I am starting to, as you could see, put in some of the full arts. I have the signed card. I have the Village Rites. But I don't know. I'll probably try to pimp it out a little bit more in the later times, but we'll see. Anyway, know why I rambled on so long about that. 1 black, target creature gets -1, -1. But if a creature died this turn, this card has Morbid, so you get to give a creature -13, -13 instead. Just, in my opinion, one of the best removal pieces. And especially if you're running Sacrifice deck, then you don't even care. Like, Morbid is the easiest thing to get in this deck going. Vampiric Tutor, 1 black. Instant, you get to search your library for a card, shuffle, then put that card on top. You lose 2 life. This is Village Rites. You sack a creature as an addition to its cost, and then you can draw 2 cards. We run quite a bit of draw in the deck with our commander already there, but I like to put in a couple pieces to be able to help out where I can. Vines of Vastwood. I actually just won because of this card yesterday, which is pretty funny. 1 green, and it has a kicker of 1 green. Target creature can't be the target of spells or abilities your opponents control this turn, and if it was kicked, target creature gets +4/+4 until the end of turn. So I was actually able to swing in both my Ornithopter and something else that I had that had flying, and somebody only had 4 life left, and he only had 1 flying blocker, so I was actually able to use the kicker ability to give that creature +4/+4. So +4/+4 is not really why it's there, but it was relevant that time, so that's why you always have to remember that it's good to have cards that are a little more versatile than maybe mana efficient. But the can't be the target spells or abilities your opponents control is the big piece. Vitalize, 1 green, untap all creatures you control, allows you to Baba Lysaga again, and then Worldly Tutor, you get to search for a creature, reveal it, put it on top. Well, shuffle, then put that card on top. So go get whatever creature you want for next turn. Usually you're going to get a Mana Dork, but it also allows you to go get that combo piece and other things. So the instant package could be a little bit heavier, honestly, but I'm kind of happy with every single card here. I don't think that I would replace any of them. We'll move on to the artifacts real quick. Artifacts are, again, pretty straightforward. Aetherflux Reservoir, 4 colorless. Whenever you cast a spell, you gain 1 life for each spell you've cast before it this turn. You could pay 50 life to deal 50 damage to any target. So, Baba Lysaga is draining and gaining for us. So, it's not hard for us to get above 50. I oftentimes get well above 50 when I'm playing this. And especially if you're able to cast this Aetherflux and then throw out some of your 0-drop creatures and other things, you could really gain a lot of life. And then take out that pesky person that's annoying you whenever you want. Arcane Signet, 2 colorless, it taps for 1 mana of any color in your commander's identity. Chrome Mox, if it enters the battlefield, you can imprint a card, and then this taps for 1 of the colors in its in that card's colors. Crucible Worlds, 3 colorless, you can play lands from graveyards. Golgari Signet, put 1 into it, you get a black and a green. Ichor Wellspring, 2 colorless. Whenever it enters the battlefield or is put into a graveyard from the battlefield, you get a draw card. So you're going to put this out there, sack with Baba Lysaga's ability. Lightning Greaves, 2 colorless, gives a creature Shroud and Haste. Mana Crypt, taps for 2 colorless, and if you have to flip at the beginning of your turn, if you lose, you take 3 damage. Mox Amber, it's going to tap for 1 mana of any color amongst legendary creatures and planeswalkers you control, so this is going to give you a black or green for free. Again, a lot of these 0 drops are really important because we're going to draw into a ton of cards with our commander. It's good to throw these guys out. Sensei's Diving Top, 1 colorless. You can pay 1 to look at the top 3, put them back in any order, and then you can tap, draw a card, and then put the top on top. We don't run any of the combo, but you could with Sensei's Diving Top and Aetherflux. I just don't run the other pieces too, but it is a decent combo if you wanted to add it in the deck. I believe there's only one other card that you really could put in here, like Mystic Forge, that would be like an easy include for not much money if you already had the other 2. Soul Ring, 1 colorless, taps for 2 colorless. Swiftfoot Boots, 2 colorless, equipped a creature gets Hexproof and Haste. And then Talisman of Resilience, taps for colorless or taps for black or green, but deals 1 damage to you if you choose to. So pretty straightforward, nothing too special here. Enchantments are also pretty straightforward. We play Exploration, allows you to play an additional land on each of your turns. Kaya's Ghost Form, which if a creature would die or put into exile, return that card to the battlefield under your control. This is really good because you can choose to sacrifice the creature and you can choose to sacrifice Kaya's Ghost Form. So if you have an artifact creature and you sacrifice Kaya's Ghost Form, you're going to get your creature back and you've already met the 3 permanent types. Rancor, 1 green. It gives creature +2/+0 and trample, but it's in there because if it's put into a graveyard from the battlefield, you could return Rancor to its owner's hand. So for 1 green, you get to keep putting out Rancor, which gives you an enchantment to sacrifice whenever you would like. And Utopia Sprawl, it's 1 green, chants the land. It has to enchant a forest. And then whenever that forest is tapped, you could add 1 mana of the chosen color. So you're oftentimes going to choose Swamp, or choose black, and then get a black every time you tap that land. So as you can see, we're trying to fit in as much as we can artifact, creature type things. We have some stuff that cares about lands. So the other big thing is the land base in this deck. Normally I kind of blow past it because it's not that important. But for this deck, the land base actually does do quite a bit. So I'm going to run through quickly why the cards are in there. Blinkmoth Nexus. You could tap it. It gives you a colorless. Or you could pay 1 and it becomes an artifact creature with flying that's still a land. So you're able to meet the artifact, creature, and land category just by paying 1 mana and putting it into this, which is pretty crazy. And you could even tap itself to use that 1 floating mana to put into it. So really, it's one of the best lands that you could possibly want in a deck like this. Command Tower is going to give you black or green. Crypt of Agadim enters tapped. You can tap it for a black, or you can put 2 into it and get a black for each black creature card in your graveyard. This is one that I misread, so it's probably going to get replaced with another regular land. I didn't realize it only gives you a black for each black creature card in your graveyard, which we don't run a ton of. So this is one that I'm going to take out. Dark Boar Pathway. It's a black land that if you flip over, it's a green land. Flips into Slitherborn Pathway. Dark Moss Bridge is an artifact land that's indestructible, but because it's artifact and land, it meets 2 of the categories. That's why it's in here. Dryad Arbor is a land creature. Evolving Wilds just helps us kind of thin out our regular lands so we can kind of get them out of the way. I run 8 forests and 8 swamps. Lair of the Hydra. If you control 2 or more other lands, it enters the battlefield tapped. Taps for green, or you could put X and 1 green into it to turn it into an XX creature. So realistically, you put 2 mana into it, you get you get a creature land. So this kind of just helps out if we need to get to that other piece. Llanowar Wastes, tap for colorless or tap for a black or green, but it deals 1 damage to you. Mishra's Factory is the same thing as Blinkmoth. You get a tap itself, put the 1 mana into it, it becomes a 2/2 artifact creature land. So another one of those cards that kind of does everything that you want. Overgrown Tomb, it's a swamp forest that when it enters you could pay 2. If you don't, then it enters tapped. Terramorphic Expanse, same thing as Evolving Wilds, just help thin out the deck. Tree of Tales, and there's a black land that does the same thing that I don't have, but I need it for the deck. It's an artifact land, so that's the big thing. Urborg is in here because it makes all lands swamps in addition to their types. So if we need an extra black, it gives it to us. Yavimaya is in here for the same thing. If we need extra green, it's going to make every land a forest also. Basically turning, if we have both those out, turns every land into Overgrown Tomb for free. Urza's Saga, it is a saga land. It's an enchantment land, which matters because we could sacrifice it to Baba Lysaga if we wanted to. But usually we're trying to get to that third ability where you could search for an artifact card with converted mana cost 0 or 1 and put it on the battlefield. And the last one's Woodland Cemetery. Enters tapped unless you control a swamp or forest. So the big thing with Urza's Saga is because it gets us a 0 or 1 drop for our artifacts. It can get us the top, Mox Amber, Mana Crypt. It can get us Soul Ring. It can get Chrome Mox. You're not really going to get Chrome Mox, but you're probably likely to get something like Soul Ring or Mox Amber, depending on what you need. But if you already have a decent amount of mana and you don't need it, you can get Sensei's Diving Top, which is really good because it's going to give you card advantage in the future. And then also, because it says Artifact, you can get Ornithopter, or you can get Phyrexian Walker, which actually I did just the other day because getting something like that is actually a pretty decent move to make sure that you have an artifact creature that's going to be out there. Especially if you know you have something like a Mirror Retriever in hand, it makes it a lot easier to play the Mirror Retriever because you know that you're going to have that 0-drop creature to get back. So this is pretty much the deck. Like I said, the big thing with Baba Lysaga is trying to get to that 3 card types amongst the permanents sacrificed. And the other big thing with this deck is really the constant battle. If you're one of those people that likes to kind of figure out how you're going to do stuff with the deck, then Baba Lysaga might be right up your alley. I had one of my friends play this deck, for instance, and all he did was play the Quarian Ranger. He returned a forest to his hand. He used Baba Lysaga's ability as many times as he could, but then at the end of his turn, he looked down and realized that all he really had was Baba Lysaga and 1 land left because he was just sacrificing everything, as much as he possibly could. The thing with Baba Lysaga is, however, you need to do that constant battle of what am I sacrificing? What am I trying to get? Am I sacrificing this for a reason? Do I have a way to get these lands back? Am I going to need these lands? So there's a lot of critical thinking with this deck and a constant back and forth of, am I playing this because I need it, or am I playing it because I'm going to use it as fodder in the future for Baba Lysaga? And the fact that it's black-green means that there's many other combos you could put into the deck. You could put Sanguine Bond with Exquisite Blood, and other little combos like that. There's plenty in black-green for gain and drain loops. So there's really a lot that you could run. The only thing that really matters is making sure that you have the permanent types with Baba Lysaga. I think it's a really underrated commander. It's currently my favorite deck to play. I'm constantly grabbing this deck out and playing it. I mean, I played it probably 3 or 4 times yesterday alone just because it was doing well against everybody in different things. And another good thing, if you did enjoy this list and you were looking through it, is Baba Lysaga is very easy to make budget. It's very easy to make high-powered, and it's very easy to make low-powered. So this is really just a commander you can kind of grab and put your favorite things into it, as long as you're fitting those card types. So that's it for my deck list for Baba Lysaga. If you guys think of anything, let me know. I am curious to hear some feedback about the deck. I know that, like I said, there's definitely some creatures that could be cut from here that I kind of run just to try out, and I know that I could probably put more instants in the deck. But, yep, that's it, guys. I'll see you guys on the next one.